Get ready. You're listening to Give God 90 live.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to Give God 90. We are live doing a special presentation as we do this morning, and I really hope everyone is listening and doing their thing, and for some reason I'm not hearing me, and I don't know why. So let's see what's going on here. I don't know what the problem is. I am looking and trying to figure out what's going on. Everything that I see is working. I'm just not hearing me. So hopefully it's working. If anybody's out there on chat, let me know for sure. But I'm not hearing it. We're just going to keep going for a minute and see what happens. So, hopefully. Oh, we still have that going. Alright, let's try this way. See if that helps any, and see if that cures my problem. Hopefully it will cure my problem, but we'll see. Alright, we're currently trying to figure out what's going on, and I don't know what the problem is. I can hear everything on everything except when I need to hear it on. We may need to restart and regroup. We'll find out. Ladies and gentlemen, give me just a couple of minutes to check on a couple of things and figure out what I'm doing. And I'm working as quickly as I possibly can to figure this out. I am not sure everything's showing that it's going. I'm just not hearing it the way I should be hearing it. So we're going to attempt to see if this is right. But I know what it could be. As I am working through this and trying to figure things out, I am going to... Oh, that's what that is. Okay, I got it. I understand. What we're looking at, what we're trying to figure out today is why I'm having technical issues when I shouldn't be having technical issues. But that's okay. I want to look at something today, and by the way, hopefully you can hear me. Hopefully all this is working properly. Everything is going the way it should. Because what I want to talk about today is the what I call biblical forensics. Before I get there, I want to mention a couple of things. One of the things I want to mention is if you are in a position to help people and your heart is telling you to help people, the first thing I would like you to do is pray. And as you are praying, ask who you're supposed to be helping, okay? Because who you're supposed to be helping is extremely important. And if you are looking to help people and be involved in their life, you should be helping them. And hopefully what you're going to be finding is that you are helping the right people. And if you are helping the right people, guess what? Then you're doing the work of the Almighty. But let me be honest here. If you're not helping the right people, I think that was my problem the whole time. All right. Are we there yet? Maybe. How come I don't hear my thing? There we go. Part of the equipment I'm using is actually interfaced with my phone. So when it rings, it interrupts what I'm hearing, and I don't like that. Okay, I'm going to be flat out straight honest with you. I don't like that. What I'm looking at, what I'm looking for, I'm not sure I'm hearing. So I don't have another way of testing this, but hopefully it's working. Let me try one thing, and we'll see if that's doing what I'm thinking it's going to do, and it's going to interrupt and interfere and do all kinds of weird stuff. But it's not. All right. I'm hoping everyone can hear me. Anyway, we're going to keep on going, and we'll see when I play this back. If it doesn't, I will delete it and redo it. Okay? I want to look at biblical forensics, but before I do, again, pray about who to help. I have people that you can help if you are so inclined. If not, that's okay, because helping is supposed to come from the heart, and you should be involved, which is why I don't put their information out. Because one of the first things you need to do is take a step to help people. And if you contact me, then you will be helping people, okay? And so saying that really is extremely important. I want you to be helping for the right reasons. That's why we begin with prayer. That's why we start out with doing the things that we need to be doing, and making certain that we're following His instructions, right? Because if you're just giving to give, but you're not following His instructions as you're giving, then you're not going to receive the blessings you need to receive, okay? So that's where I want to go with that. Now, on to biblical forensics. If you Google biblical forensics, one of the first things you're going to find is that they're looking to, or many people are actually looking to do something really strange. And the really strange thing they're looking at doing is being, well, that's really weird, being able to, how do I want to say this? Being able to recreate certain things that are happening in the Bible. And that's not exactly what I'm thinking about. They're wanting to recreate faces. They're wanting to recreate clothing. What I'm thinking about is a little deeper than that. What I'm thinking about is actually putting together the clues that allow us to... That's where my problem was. All right. What I'm thinking about is putting together the clues that we need to put together to get the information we need to make a good decision. Different than interpretation. And it's different than interpretation for many, many reasons. It's different from interpretation because what we're looking to do is actually, let me say it this way. When we're looking for interpretation, we're getting information from another source. If you think about an interpreter, if you have someone that you don't understand and you have another friend that speaks their language, and you ask the friend to interpret what they're saying, they're not going to give you exactly what they said, because many languages don't interchange that way. You get the general idea. Much like if you've seen someone speak and there's someone who is interpreting for the deaf people out there, they do the sign language for those people who can't hear. If you're familiar with that, you know that they don't get every word, every nuance of everything that's being said. They get a good general idea of what's being said. Now, here's the other thing that we're going to talk about with this. I'm not looking at a lot of outside sources, and it's really strange that my first example is going to be an extra biblical source. But it's an example of what kind of information we're looking for when we're looking at forensics. A few weeks ago, I was contacted by someone who was curious about what many people call the Shroud of Turin. And if you're familiar with the Shroud of Turin, you know that it is a piece of linen cloth, supposedly that was used to wrap the body of Yeshua, Jesus, in after he was crucified. They asked me, the question was, do I think it's real? Which is kind of not an odd question, but coming from someone who doesn't speak English as their first language, I had to assume, did they mean not that it exists, because yes, I do believe it exists. Do I believe that this piece of material is the actual burial cloth of Yeshua? And over the years, I've heard a lot about it. I've read a lot about it. I've done some minor little researchy things. I have watched documentaries. There is a Shroud of Turin, website. But really, all of those things promote the legitimacy of the shroud. What I'm looking for, is not necessarily promoting that legitimacy of the shroud. What I'm looking for is information that would prove to me that it is either authentic or that it was a forgery. Now, there are certain things that I can look at and say for certain that, yes, it is a forgery. There are other things that I can look at and say, no, it's not a forgery. For instance, I can be pretty sure that by searching out only the information I have access to. I've never seen the shroud in person. I've never been to Turin, Italy to look at it, which is where it is. So for me to say whether it's authentic or whether it's a forgery is all based on information that I have to acquire to make a reasonable judgment. And I'm going to be perfectly honest here. I look for things to give it legitimacy. I look to things to give it, or to discredit it. All right? One of the things I looked for was, is there any other images that the people would have been familiar with to make it look like those images, something they were familiar with? And now the Shroud of Turin was actually first talked about around the end of the 14th century, 12th to 13th to 14th century. So in that time frame, was there any artist renditions of what they thought that Yeshua looked like? And it turns out there are, and there were several. The most famous was actually found in Alexandria, and it currently is preserved in the monastery of St. Catherine in Egypt. Now, it first turned up in Alexandria, which is in Egypt, of course, so it kind of makes it easy, but it turns out that this thing happens to have turned up in the 7th century, the 6th century, and it titled Christ Pantocrator, which means he who has authority over everything. All right? This artist rendition, now you can Google it and you can see what it looks like, so you can see for yourself that it does resemble the image we see on the shroud. So does that mean that the shroud was authentic or is a forgery? It doesn't mean either. It means that this image that was painted 600 to 700 years prior to the shroud being put in the public eyes, okay, we'll just say it that way, prior to anybody realizing that there was this Shroud of Turin, because it didn't show up before, and I believe the date was like 1394 or somewhere in there. So Prior to that, there were artist renditionings concerning the shroud. Okay? Here's another issue that we run into. There were known forgers in that area at that time. They were doing all kinds of things. They were selling pieces of the cross. They were selling little bits and pieces of different things associated with the life of Yeshua. Now, I'm going to be negative about this, okay? My basic feeling, knowing all of this information based solely on the information that we have access to, is that the Shroud of Turin exists as a forgery. Until I have more information, I just don't think it's... I don't think that this was the piece of cloth used to wrap Yeshua in. I don't think it was that folded death burial cloth that we read about in Scripture. All right, I just don't think it is. Now, I use this extra biblical discovery, I guess we could call it, maybe, if I use the air quotes around the word discovery, to demonstrate, I hope, the importance of looking for information not just to confirm what we think, but we look for information that contradicts what we think as well. We look for those things that, could this have happened or could that have happened? When forensic scientists, and you can watch American TV shows, and they're going to bring in forensics team when there's a crime, right? And this forensics team's going to come in, and we see the highlights of the things that they do, to be honest with you. It's very boring when you think about all of the things forensic scientists have to do. If you're not familiar with that, one of the things, it's not just that when they come to the crime scene, they take the pictures and they move the body and they put the little measurement things out. That is all done, but there's many, many, many other steps that go with it. When a forensic scientist first walks into the scene, and hopefully nothing has been disturbed, okay? They observe the scene, they take notes, they write things down. Where's this? Where's that? How's it going here? They sketch it out, they take pictures. Then they begin to measure everything. Depending on the crime, they're going to measure everything. If a chair was turned over, how far was it from whatever happened? If a lamp was broken, how far was it from a body, where the body was discovered? That's the kind of things that they do. When you look at forensics, you are actually searching the actual crime scene, okay, for clues. When we are forensically searching the Bible for clues, we are connecting the hyperlinks that exist within the Bible itself, okay? So when we see something maybe in one of the Gospels or one of Paul's letters, we can go back and we can find out where it is in the Old Testament or in the Torah or in the prophets. Y'all know what I'm talking about there, right? So, but there's more to it than that. Just like there's more to going to a crime scene and taking pictures. I said the other night, if you were watching on Facebook, and by the way, I'm not doing these Mondays on Facebook because a lot of people around the world don't have access to it for one reason or another. And I want those folks to be absolutely part of what we're doing here. I want them to feel as though they are an important, integral part of what we are doing. So that's why I do this the way I do this. And I'm doing it on Spreaker, on using this platform to make sure and make certain, okay, that we really maintain our integrity. because I want everybody to feel important. I don't want anybody to feel left out here. But if you heard me the other night, I said that the word Sabbath in the King James Bible is used 90 times in the Old Testament alone. There's more to the story. If you were to go to any good, reliable Bible software, something you could search, and you type in the word Sabbath, you're going to come up in most translations, most English translations, that the first time the word Sabbath shows up is in Exodus 16, verse 23. Now, as I have said many, many times on Give God 90, we search through the language, the culture, and the history to make sure that we know the truth. Okay? Here's where things get fun. And this is what I like to do. I look at words and I say, well, I know that in Hebrew the word Sabbath is Shabbat, right? Now, even with just a working knowledge of Hebrew, if you then turn to a Hebrew scripture and you search out the word Shabbat, spelled Shin, Beit, Tav, just 3 letters, okay, very easy to do, very simple, easy to do. And, well, you don't even have to go that far, but we'll get there in a second. If you search out that word, you're going to find out that the first time it shows up is in Genesis chapter 2. Now, you can go to a Strong's Concordance if you look at Shabbat from Exodus 16, and the Strong's number is 7676. You're going to see it's used 111 times. Well, okay. That's good. Why is the difference? Let's think about it this way. If you think seriously about this, is Sabbath always referred to as Sabbath? No, it's not. Sometimes it's referred to as the day of rest, right? There's part of the difference. Why? Because in Genesis 2, where it's first used in the Hebrew Bible, on the 7th day God ended his work which he had made and rested on the 7th day. Here, the word rested is Strong's number 7673, says it's used 71 times. So we have the Hebrew word Shabbat used as both a noun and a verb, okay? And you'll see why I'm getting this and why I'm calling this forensical study instead of just interpretation. All right? We think of this way. Shabbat, now being a noun and a verb, is important. Shabbat, the Sabbath, something to be kept by us as a physical sign, okay? This is our way to display to our Creator that we are attempting to preserve His covenant. We are attempting to do our part. We're doing this the best of our ability. This is the part that we should be able to understand. This is something that we should be able to do, and that is observe the 7th day Sabbath. Right? Not the first day Sabbath, but the 7th day Sabbath. Now, if you want more information about that, again, Tradition to Truth, One Man's Search for Honest Answers, available wherever fine books are sold, will give you a little more information on that. You can find out when it was changed, where it was changed, and why it was changed. Okay? I can go on for a long time about this because it is so important, but I don't want to take a whole lot of time to do this. And by the way, if you're wondering where Myra is, she's actually running some errands this morning, so she wasn't able to be here as we do this one live. Another word we look at, okay, very simple, easy word from Hebrew is shalom. It's used to say hello, it's used to say goodbye, it's used for peace. Actually, it means the destruction of chaos. The first time you're going to look it up, if you look up the word peace in the King James Bible, is Genesis 15:15. Strong's number 7965 says it's used 237 times. But in Genesis 29:6, we see it used a different way. If you look at verse 4, is where I'm going to begin, because I'm going to read just a little bit. I'm going to read just 3 verses. Don't be mad at me. Jacob said to them, "My brothers, where are you from?" And they said, "Haran." He said, "Do you know Laban, the son of Nahor?" They said, "We know him." He said to them, "Is he well?" They said, "He is well." And behold, Rachel, his daughter, came with the sheep. Now, if you look at verse 6, where he responds, "He is well," if you look at that in the Hebrew Scriptures, the word there is Shalom. There's no chaos there. Everything's good. Be calm. It's all great. It's all wonderful. We know him. Shalom. And here comes his daughter. There's many, many other words in Hebrew that do the same thing. Figures of speech are another example for clues that you can look at. All right? You don't need to speak fluent Greek. You don't need to speak fluent Hebrew. You don't need to have a fluent knowledge of Hebrew and Greek. A working knowledge of Hebrew and Greek is all you really need, because what you're doing is you're studying forensically. You follow each clue. You dig through the language, the culture, and the history, which is why I began with the Shroud of Turin, because that's part of the history of extra biblical things, right? There's many, many, many extra biblical things. There is in North America, in the desert Southwest, there is an altar with ancient Hebrew writing on it. The problem is it's a forgery. Okay, I'm just going to flat out say it's a forgery. It has been discredited by knowledgeable people, and we know it's a forgery because they didn't have to interpret anything. All they had to do was look at the clues. Many, many people will tell you that there are Native Americans who were part of that lost tribe, right? The 13th lost tribe. Get over it, folks. Yes, they based their language on guess what language? Yeah, ancient Semitic languages. Which is why many people in the United States claim that the name of the Creator is not Yehovah, but Yahuwah, because that's the way certain Native American tribes pronounce the name of a Creator God. Here's the thing. We all know that language evolves over time, right? And I use this example because it's the greatest example in English I can think of. The word cool. Now, the word cool, 100 years ago, if you said cool, it was something that felt chilly, not the Southwest beef and bean dish, right? But cold, as in like ice, but not quite that cold. It was the cool of the evening. Today, when we say cool, we have to hear it in context so we know whether we're talking about being, we need a jacket, or whether something is just really exciting, really neat, but not to use the word wondrous or something like that. Cool has a lot of different slang denotations in the English language. There's a big word for everybody out there. Didn't know I knew the word denotation, did you? Fooled you. Okay, as I wind this down, here's what I want to say. All right, I want everyone out there to understand that you don't have to be a genius. We're not talking rocket science here. We are talking about something that is fascinating. We're talking about something that just absolutely is miraculous. We are talking about something that is just marvelous and easy to do. It's not rocket science. It's not It's not. What's the word I want to use here? It's anybody can do this. A 5-year-old can do this. Okay? It's not that hard to do these things. Think of it this way. Okay? If we look at figures of speech, going back to that for just a second, we know that in Genesis, God named Adam because he was made from the dirt of the earth, right? Because he made Adam from Adamah. Okay? That's the way Hebrew works. There's a phrase in, I believe it's Ephesians, where it says, and God was there and Jesus was our salvation. Well, yeah, because Jesus means God is our salvation. God saved us and Jesus is our salvation. It's doing it in Hebrew. It's like reading it twice. So as that progresses, what we see are different things. The number 7 and the concept of being wholly satisfied, completely satisfied. The difference there, Sheva and Seva. So when Yeshua speaks about forgiving someone 70 times 7, is actually a figure of speech and a play on words in Hebrew, and it works beautifully. The other thing that we think about, the other thing that we note, is that this is going to drive everybody wild. Okay? When we think about discussing these things forensically, people have a tendency to get nervous. Well, we need to have somebody interpret that for us. The Bible interprets itself. If we allow ourselves to follow the clues, if we just get out of the way, okay? We're just going to get out of the way and let Scripture speak for itself, okay? If we allow the Bible to speak for itself, we then can follow the clues, we can follow the hyperlinks, we can study these things forensically, just like a forensic scientist would, and you can do this in whatever language you speak, whatever language of Scripture you have in front of you. That's the best place to begin, because you can say, well, you know what, in Isaiah, I read this, and I read it again in maybe Jeremiah. I read it again in, let's use Deuteronomy as an example. And then I read it again because Paul reinforces it in one of his letters to somebody. When you put those things together, now you have a foundation that says, I have this many witnesses, this must be accurate. This must be an accurate way of describing what we're reading. Now, if you read something and you think it means something, you're interpreting it this way, okay? But you can't find other witnesses to verify it, maybe you should change the way you think about it. Maybe instead of trying to interpret it, you say, is there someplace else in this Bible where it tells me this? Or is there someplace in the Bible that tells me this isn't right? Because there are places, especially in our New Testament, that are questionable. There are things there that have been added over the years in different translations. It has evolved. It is not written the way it was originally written. We can look at, King James admitted to adding things, and they made them go back and say, okay, everything you added, you have to put in italics, right? Everything you changed, you had to let us know about. And they did that originally in 1611. Or actually, it was around 1633 by the time that was done. There are translations where you're going to read things in Mark where it says, he made all foods clean. And sometimes that is in italics, sometimes it's in parentheses, sometimes there's no denotation to tell you that was added. So you have to be aware of these things. You have to understand them, you have to look for them, which is why we do more than read, we study. And in that study, study Scripture like Sherlock Holmes would study. And most people in the world know who Sherlock Holmes is, right? He was a famous detective in England. He could walk in and look at a crime scene, or he could meet somebody on the road and know where they've been, what they had for breakfast. He might not have seen them for 3 days, but he knew what they had for breakfast this morning. Okay? That's the kind of forensical study that we need to accomplish in Scripture if we're going to really understand it, if we're going to really grasp each and every word that our Creator gives us. Go through it with a magnifying glass. Don't leave any stone unturned until you are completely satisfied, until you are absolutely 100% completely satisfied that the words you want to hear are the words that the Creator actually spoke. When you understand that He speaks to give us information, He speaks to make us aware of what He wants us to hear. He speaks through Scripture, and He is telling us, search for Him. When you find what He wants us to hear, then you have found the truth. Okay? Ladies and gentlemen, I really appreciate each and every one of you sticking with me, even with all the technical issues I started out with this time. Please pray for each other. There's a lot of people that listen to this. And have a wonderful, wonderful week.